Good morning and welcome to today's morning movement mobility session. This, as always, is a 20 to 30 minute movement session designed to work your joints through a light range of motion to have you feeling good to take on the rest of your day or to move into a workout. Today's mobility session would be helpful if you have a chair or something to hold on to for a little bit of balance. So maybe sneak away to grab that real quickly. You can also use your hand on a wall. So feel free to do that as an option. But we'll move into our first circuit, which is 3 exercises. So if you do have a chair, you're going to stand right behind it and put one hand on it. If you don't, stand in front of the wall and just put one hand on the wall. And from here, we're going to do a standing bird dog. So I'm going to reach up a leg or reach back one leg and the opposite arm. And then I'm going to tuck them in, bringing my hand to my knee, and then reach back out, really trying to elongate as I reach. And then nice control, bringing the leg in. So we're working a little bit of balance on the planted leg, and then we're getting a nice stretch as we reach in that straight position. And think about those fingertips reaching up towards the ceiling and your back toe reaching towards the ground as you reach backward. We'll do 2 more. Last one on this side. And then take a moment and we'll switch to the other side. Again, finding that balance with your hand on the chair. Opposite arm and leg reach out. And then you're going to tuck hand to knee and then reach out long. Hand to knee and reach out long. Again, if you need to do this just with your hand on the wall, that's a great option if you have something waist height to use. You could even try this without balance support, but we're really working more the mobility than the balance. So definitely feel free to use that balance assist. We'll do 2 more on this side. And last one. And rest. Very good. For our second movement today, we're going to do a sumo squat. And the sumo part can be within whatever reason feels good for your body and your hips. So take a slightly wider than hip distance stance. If it feels good to creep your feet even wider, go ahead, and even turning the feet slightly out to the side. Then we're going to just reach your fingertips down towards the ground as you sink down and come back up. This doesn't have to be very low. You can just go down till you feel a bit of a stretch in your adductors. Those are your inner thigh muscles. And with this, you might be tempted to hinge, but we're staying tall with the torso, keeping the chest lifted to keep this more of a squat position. So again, dropping down. If you need to narrow your stance, that's totally fine. If it needs to be more of a half distance like that, it's totally fine. And as your legs loosen up, feel free to increase that range of motion if you can or if you want to. We'll do 1 more. And rest. Very nice. And then our last one is going to be a hip circle with your hands behind your head. No need to interlock your fingers. You can just have your fingertips meeting. And then we're going to think about making a big circle with your hips, trying to keep it nice and smooth as you go around one direction, whichever way feels comfortable to go first. We'll do 1 more. And then now switch and go the other direction. Really making sure you're not missing any parts of that circle and staying within whatever range of motion feels comfortable for your body today. One more. And rest. Very good. All right, take a moment to breathe, and we'll set up that chair to go back to the start of our circuit with the bird dog reaches. Grabbing that chair, and then thinking about a nice long reach as you start with that arm and leg lifted, and then bring hand to knee, reach, and bring hand to knee. And really the most important part of this movement is the reach. So make sure that you're not just kind of going to the end point, but you're reaching with your arm and your leg. Makes it a lot more active at the end of the movement and gets a little bit more of that mobility that we're working for, especially at the hip flexor. Last one. And then switch sides. Holding on for a little balance, reaching the arm and leg, bringing it in and out. This is 2. We're going for 8 on each side. 4. Again, really reach. Keep breathing for 2 more. And rest. Good. You can put that chair to the side if you need a little bit more space. And then we'll go in to that sumo squat. So again, foot position wide. If it feels good to turn your toes outward ever so slightly, feel free to do that. And then keep the torso tall as you lower down and come back up. I'll show you this time from the side, just so you can see my torso posture is staying really tall. Knees are pushing out and forwards. But again, with this one, if you need to shorten the depth or move your feet more close to a regular squat stance, feel free to do that. Maybe time your exhale with the way back up. Reach down and breathe out. We'll do 2 more. Nice and controlled for 1 more. And rest. Very good. And then our third one, that prisoner hand position with the hip circles. So again, just kind of overlapping your fingertips, and then feet are just about hip distance apart. And then you're going to do circles. Might remind you of hula hoop days. And so what this is doing is really just helping that hip mobility. Anytime you do things in a circle, especially a nice controlled circle, you don't want to be going with a bunch of momentum. It's helping that joint just articulate in the joint itself. 1 more this direction, and then go the other direction. Make sure you're not bending over too much when the hips are backward, or leaning back too much when the hips are forward. We'll do 2, 1, and rest. Very good. Alrighty, and then we're on to our second circuit. And so this one is going to start with a upper body mobility, most specifically for the shoulders. You're going to start with your arms out to a T, and there's a little bit of rotation that's going to happen as we bring your hand over to this side, getting a little bit of a stretch in that lat, and then turn other side, kind of a nice overhead semicircle sweep as you go one side And then the other, letting your hips move with you to turn to face that other side. Turning to one side, nice and controlled. Again, momentum takes away some of that mobility benefit that you get when you keep things nice and controlled. And last one right here. And rest. Good. Alrighty, then our second one is going to be neck mobility. It's nice to know that these neck mobility exercises are some of the most popular. I think it's something that you notice a lot, especially when driving and looking over your shoulder. But we're going to do neck up and down lifts. I'll show you from the side. So you're just going to raise your chin as high as you comfortably can, knowing that you'll be able to bring it back down and tuck it in without straining at the neck. So again, lifting up, let your eyes follow where your head goes. And at the bottom, really think about tucking your chin in towards you. Tucking in. This is one you really want to make sure to go slowly with. And if you feel yourself feeling like it's too much of a lift, just don't raise your chin quite as far. One more. And rest. Good. And then for our last one, it's going to be a 3-position calf raise. So to start, we're going to do a regular calf raise, and you can hold on to a wall for balance if you need it for these, or just have your hands on your hips or at your sides. But you're going to lift up and come back down, up and down. Working that balance a little bit if you're not holding on. One more straight up and down. Then our second position is toes turned slightly outwards. Lift up, come back down. Totally okay to need a balance support. One more in this position. And then last position, really stick with what's comfortable and start small at first. Just move your toes ever so slightly inward and heels ever so slightly outward. Not a huge triangle position with your feet, but just a little bit. We'll do 3 more here. And last one. Good. Sometimes we sneak a little bit of strength in with our mobility because they're all really so closely related. All right, take a moment to breathe and we'll head through these 3 one more time. First one being that arm swoop, starting with your hands out to your sides, then reach as you just rotate a little bit at the hips to one side and then the other. Thinking about that arm, getting a nice stretch as you reach. Keeping a really active shoulder joint versus letting the arm just fall through that movement. We'll do one more on each side. Last one. And rest. Good. Alrighty. Then our second one is that neck looking up and looking down mobility. So a little chin lifts and tucks. During this one, you can make sure to think about having really good posture as you do this movement. Looking up and down. And you certainly could if it felt okay, but I wouldn't recommend closing your eyes during this exercise, or really any of our mobility exercises. We're not working your proprioception as much as we're really trying to work mobility. And then beyond that, a little balance and strength. And so it can be an interesting practice to close your eyes during an exercise, but I like to think of that as more specific balance work, which we aren't really doing with these sessions. So keep those eyes open, looking up and looking down for one more time. And rest, good. And then the last one, hopefully you like these calf raises as much as I do. It's kind of a fun challenge to put the calf in just a little bit of a different position. So again, starting with feet facing forward, optional balance support. We're doing 6 of each, just at your own pace, not too fast, not too slow. 5 and 6. And then move the toes outward and or heels inward a little bit. And we'll go for 6. Kind of channeling your inner ballerina with this one. Turns out it's a great way to work the calves and the mobility at the ankle as we put the foot in different internal and external rotations. And rest. And then the last one, moving to that slightly pigeon-toed type position, maybe moving the toes in a little closer together if it feels comfortable, but feel free to keep it a very moderate inward position. Two more, taking your time, keeping it controlled. And rest. Very good. Alrighty, we've made it to the final circuit, which has a little bit of stretching to start. We're going to do a tricep stretch, and we have 2 options for this because it's also great in working the shoulder mobility. So option 1 is to take your hand, reach it behind your back, and gently tug on the elbow. If this feels just fine, stay here. If not, if overhead mobility is a little stiffer, then you get to do the side version of the tricep stretch, just pulling it across your body this direction. So if that's your option, stay there. I'll go back to showing you this option so I can remind you not to arch at the back, but tuck in that core and think about just gently pulling that elbow backwards. One breath in and out, and then you can drop that arm and do the other side. And if you're doing the other version, just move that arm across your body. And so this is a gentle tug that you might feel all through the tricep and the lat, since we're working on that overhead position with the arm here. And so just a gentle tug. If yours looks more like this, that's totally okay. No need to compare your mobility to anyone else's. It's your body. It has its different limits, and all of them are okay. Take one more breath in here. And exhale. Very nice. All right, the second one is going to be a standing leg abduction. This one, again, option to put yourself near something for balance support. You can certainly do this one without holding on if you want to test the balance. But again, since we're after mobility, potentially do hold on. Have your knee bent at 90 degrees. And then I'm just lifting that leg straight to the side. Not as high as I possibly can, but as high as I can without shifting the whole rest of my position. So everything else stays tall. That knee goes directly outwards. We'll do one more on this side. And then we'll switch. And it's okay if your hamstring really engages in this position. You can straighten your leg a bit, since we are mostly concerned at working our mobility at the hip here. Some people are a little more prone to cramping, or if you've really worked your hamstrings, you can do this with more of a straight leg. But do try that 90-degree position and see for how long you can hold it in that position as you do that abduction. One more this leg, and rest. Good. And then our third one is going to be another nice stretch. We're going to do standing hip flexor mobility with 1 foot forward, 1 foot backward, staying on your toes if you can. First step is to tuck your hips, and then we push them forward as I bend this leg a little bit. If you don't tuck your hips, you're not going to feel that stretch in your hip flexor right here as much as you would if you keep the hips tucked under that little pelvic tilt, and then just gently press forward. And then we'll switch sides. So again, split stance, toes, you're on the toes of your back foot, tuck the hips under, and then push them forward. Just breathing into this stretch. Might feel a little bit of engagement in that front quad. That's totally okay. And rest. Very nice. All right, we have one more time to go through these 3. So again, first one is that tricep stretch. If you're doing this position, just hold it here. I'll remind you, your other position is pulling the arm across the body, not yanking it, but gently just pressing it. But I'll show you this one and remind you not to arch the back and just focus on those fingertips reaching down your back as far as the joint will let you. Take a big breath in and let it out. And then drop your hands and do that on the other side. Again, making sure that you're not arching the back. You might almost feel like you're leaned a little bit forward in this position, but then you're focusing on pushing that elbow back. Again, just in whatever range of motion feels comfortable. Yours might look far more like that. That's totally okay. And then release. Good. All right, second one is that bent leg lift to the side. So find your position and join me, staying nice and tall, lifting that knee just directly out to the side. Good, keeping your breathing steady. And just lifting to that natural point of resistance. One more for this side. And rest. Good. And going to the other side. Hopefully you feel a little warm by this point. Mobility is really great at warming the body up for more movement. Maybe you head into an at-home strength session or a little cardio. If you're ever curious what types of exercises I'd recommend you put into a routine, you can see some of the information I put out over on the HelloStrengthSeniors Instagram, or you can always send me a DM with a question. But your hips, shoulders, everything should be really ready for some more movement after this. Or just loosened up for the day. Last one, and rest. Good. And then that last one, our nice little reward hip flexor stretch. 1 foot back behind, tucking the hips, and then reaching them forward. And so why we do this is to really put the stretch in the hip flexor, not the quad. Often that's where we feel a lot of these types of stretches, but it's that big pelvic tilt, tucking the hips under that lets us unlock the hip flexor. And switch. Totally normal. Tuck if one side feels way tighter than the other, or you may not even feel that much of a stretch, but just by getting into this position, you're lengthening that hip flexor. Might not always feel like a huge stretch, but you're still putting that muscle in a different position by doing that tilt. And rest. Very good. Well, I hope that your body felt good today with all of these movements. If there's any that you particularly enjoyed or didn't enjoy, always feel free to let me know in the comments. And I hope to see you next week for another morning movement mobility session.